Hello, my name is Dr. Les Buckley, and I'm part of SMU's Executive Development faculty. Let me tell you a story about how one analog business found a way to become digital. I've been involved in senior business leadership for over 30 years, and recently I've started to invest in startups, including a small materials management company from Imperial College in London. They've created electric paint, which really was a solution in search of problems. So my role was to help find some problems. Initially, the business was about making small kits for kids who painted some circuits, connected a battery and a light, and wow, it works. So initially, a pure materials company, but we learned that to build the company, we had to move from selling products to identifying customers that we could help solve problems. One day we received an email from a father of a kid who'd used one of our kits. He was innovation lead at a major international pest control organization, a very analog organization, and he had a major problem. The board had discovered a new buzzword, digital solutions, and he had no ideas how to become digitally enabled. So we were asked, how could we assist their organization become digital? So we sat around discussing the problems that he faced, and a key customer group that they had were hotels. And the hotel's biggest problem was that managers got fired because of bed bugs. They were never promoted because their hotels were clean, but if there was a bed bug infestation, it was a huge challenge. No added value in solving this, but there was an overwhelming negative customer response. And from a pest control business, their approach was very analog. They would send their executives along to be able to identify if there was any bed bugs there and then spray to prevent it. But bed bugs really generated an enormous amount of negative publicity, and this has got worse with Quora and Wikitravel and Booking.com, where hotels really hate reviews such as that, prompted by Laurent A. from Montreal, entitled "Bed Bugs in Our Bed." At first, this hotel looks okay until you wake up in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. because you've been scratching all over and realize your bed is infested with bed bugs. This is a review that every manager fears. From a pest control basis, their solution was heavy on skilled people. They had to train people to be able to identify when bed bugs were around. And it certainly was not an aspirational job. It was not scalable. It took time and effort, and their coverage was limited by the number of skilled people they had. And the solutions were reactive. They were unable to plan ahead. So they had to have an enormous amount of spare capacity to be able to provide coverage should a bed bug infestation occur. But of course, the offering was generic. Every pest control organization offered exactly the same solution, and hotels would play them off against each other purely on price. So we thought, how could we, as an electric paint organization focusing on hardware and a little bit of software, be able to solve this problem? And we did it by identifying how we could create data, a digital response. Now, the electric paint can be printed in a high resolution way to be able to be installed as a sticker on a piece of paper with a small connection to link through to Wi-Fi. And what that enables us to do is to be able to display sensor output. The output could identify an elephant or an insect as small as a bedbug. It enabled us to have a global view of what was going on in hotel beds. It was high resolution, and the printed capacitor pad was paper thin, and we had scalable manufacturing. We used a 3-volt battery. We managed to get a patent for differential pest sensors. It was a digitally disruptive development. The promise went from we cure pests to we can prevent pests. Why? Because by installing these sensors and having the sensors link through to a computer, we were able to assist the pest control company identify before infestations occurred. We were able to identify bed bugs an order of magnitude earlier than a skilled operator. And that was really revolutionary. This passive detection of bed bugs, generating this data through printed capacitive sensors that were thin and low cost and sensitive and networked, created an enormous data advantage for this particular pest control company. And this tapped into a deep well of customer concern in the hotels. No hotel manager wanted that bed bug review. There were strong negative emotions, emotional fear of risk, loss of manager credibility, enormous amounts of wasted time cleaning out the infestation, a fear of getting fired. This was a problem that customers really wanted to prevent, not just solve. So the solution was quickly trialed and proved to be successful. We retained the existing team, but we were able to scale that team to a significantly wider range of hotels. We were able to predict potential problems, to be able to use the data and investigate that data to be able to identify how many days before the small number of bed bugs became an infestation. We were able then to produce better scheduling of a response and a significant reduction in resources in the pest control organization. The solution was a slippery solution, and I'll come back to this a little bit later on. It was a simple solution. It was low to no initial costs. It installed very easily. It proved its value quickly to both the pest control organization and hotels. It integrated easily within the pest control or existing organization. It really was easy to use. The ROI to the pest control organization was obvious. And once seen, customers could not live without this because it significantly reduced the risk of bedbug investigations. It enabled us to help the pest control company reimagine their partnership with hotels in a digital way. The proprietary digital innovation produced information. It prevented customer complaints. It created delighted partners, and we were involved in more joint innovation work with them. But could this solution become digitally revolutionary? Yes, because this passive network of sensors could detect other things, could detect other pests, could be moved into other areas. It could detect occupancy numbers, occupancy times. It could also detect cleaning frequency and performance. It could also look at aircon or heating performance. This sensor generated an enormous amount of data and was passively connected 24/7. It was a discontinuous innovation because it had the potential to reinvest the pest control business. It was defensible as it is now patented IP, and it's disruptive to other pest company businesses and maybe to other businesses. And that's 3D digital: discontinuous, defensible, disruptive. That was a great learning. But what else did we learn from this process of engaging with an analog pest control company and try to assist them to become digital? In the end, it's people and customer needs, not the technology, that will create your business opportunity. We used a passive sensor with electric paint printing on paper to be able to create data. We then used the capabilities of the pest control company to interpret that data into information. And we were able, in a predictive way, over a number of months, to create insight through data analysis and algorithms to be able to create action in advance of a problem occurring. And that, I think, is the critical digital equation. Sensors creating data, capabilities converting that data into information, that information into insight, and then into action. What's the digital insight here? The insight is that digital transformation is the process of using digital technologies to create new business processes or modify existing processes, as we did here, and to recreate customer experiences to meet changing business and market requirements. Data empowers decision making. It creates data, but it also requires your own capabilities to interpret that data into information, and your skill to take that information and identify the real action creating insights. It provides connectivity, especially with stakeholders. Here, it provided much needed process automation, and it has the potential to reinvent an analog industry where skilled operators with flashlights go out to investigate bedbugs into a passive sensor revolution. It identifies quite clearly what you should do in an analog way, which is potentially pre-treat those potential infestations, and what can be done digitally. And it significantly increases the scale. But one of the learnings that we had here, that I'll talk about later, is you really need a digitally agile culture to manage this. And that was an element that was missing. Empathizing with our customers is critical. Remembering that our customers don't buy our products or services. They hire solutions from us to address the jobs that they need to do. But what are the problems that we should really be focusing on? Because for Bear Conductive, our electric paint company, there were so many opportunities. Which digital opportunities should they focus on? I talked to them about hair on fire problems. Now, what do I mean by that? Let me share a story. Imagine standing next to a friend and their hair was on fire. That's right, the hair on their head was on fire. That fire would be the only thing they really cared about in this world now. Wouldn't matter if they were hungry or just suffered a bad breakup or were looking for a promotion or were running late to a meeting. They would absolutely prioritize putting the fire out. If you handed them a hose, the perfect product solution, they put the fire out immediately and go on their way. But even if you handed them a brick, they would still grab it and try to hit themselves on the head to put the fire out. So the insight is, if the problem is so important, even a half-baked version 1 imperfect solution will be trialed. creating opportunities. A startup guru, Michael Scott, talks about 4 U problems. Firstly, is the problem unworkable? Does your solution fix a business process where there are real, measurable consequences to inaction? Will somebody get fired if the issue is not adopted? If the answer is yes, then that person is likely to be your internal champion to promote your digital solution. Secondly, is fixing the problem unavoidable? Is the problem driven by mandate with implications associated with governance or audit or regulatory control or government influence? For example, is it driven by a fundamental accounting requirement? Again, if the answer is yes, then that accounting group will likely become your champion. Is the problem urgent? Is it one of the top few priorities for the company? In selling to enterprises, you'll find it hard to command the attention resources to get a done deal if you fall below this urgency line. And if the answer is yes, it is urgent, then you know you'll have the attention of the C-suite to promote your digital solution. And fourthly, is the problem underserved? Is there a conspicuous absence of valid solutions to the problem you're looking at? Are we focusing on gaps in the market, white space? Again, if the answer is yes, then you know the market is primed for the solution. So in Michael Scott's words, is the problem unworkable? Is the problem unavoidable? Is the problem urgent? Or is the problem underserved? These are the hair on fire problems you should identify and prioritize. But how do we define the best solutions? These solutions really need to be friction-free. They need to be slippery. That's the anagram I'll use, S-L-I-P-P-E-R-Y, slippery products. Simple, S, to use products. Low to no initial cost products. I, installs easily. P, proves value quickly. P, plays well with others within the organization and within the customer. E, easy to use. R, the ROI is obvious. Why? Why? Because customers can't live without you. Slippery products. S, simple. L, low to no initial cost. I, installs easily. P, proves value quickly. P, plays well with others. E, easy to use. R, ROI is obvious. And why? Why? Because customers can't live without you. You are able to ensure that the gain from your solution is significantly greater than the pain of implementing. So what happened to our pest control company? Do we have a happy ending? I talked about culture, and this is where culture came into play. The answer is sort of. Fortunately, the innovation guy was promoted. That was great for him, not so good for us. That meant that we lost our champion, and that significantly slowed our progress because the new innovation head had to be brought in and we had to sell the program again to him. Then the innovation was passed to another team for commercialization. Again, the culture of this organization was they had an innovation group who came up with innovations. They passed that innovation to another group, a commercialization group. And then we had another group of people that we had to sell to. It significantly slowed down our progress, even though the opportunity was great. But within the culture of this pest control organization, they really do like analog solutions. There is a lack of trust in the digital solution. But we're now market testing it, and we're looking at ways in which we can overcome those objections. So this story continues, and hopefully in the future, after we get through our present troubles, hopefully I'll be able to find one of those sensors under my hotel bed soon.